This is a subpoena. Department of Justice letterhead, case number 2026-CR-00847, issued to CME Group, Inc., parent company of the COMEX Metals Exchange, dated January 21, 2026. Obtained through a FOIA request that took 11 days to process, unusually fast, which tells you something about how badly someone wanted this public. The subpoena demands all records related to price-setting mechanisms, delivery protocols, and position concentration in gold, silver, platinum, and palladium futures markets from January 2020 to present. That's not a regulatory inquiry. That's a criminal investigation into the fundamental mechanism by which precious metals are priced worldwide. And here's what should terrify anyone with metals stored at a COMEX-approved facility. Paragraph 14 of the subpoena authorizes the seizure of all physical inventory records, custodial agreements, and chain of custody documentation, pending investigation. Seizure, not review, seizure. The Department of Justice just told COMEX they might take custody of the evidence, and in a precious metals investigation, the evidence includes the metal itself. This is not about fraud prosecution. This is about establishing legal grounds to freeze the largest precious metals storage and trading system in the Western world. And if you have metal in that system, the time to withdraw is measured in days, not weeks. Here's what they're not telling you. On January 22nd, at 6:45 a.m. Eastern, CME Group filed an 8K with the SEC disclosing material legal proceedings that could significantly impact operations. The filing was 17 words in the relevant section. It referenced the DOJ investigation but provided no details. At 7:15 a.m., trading opened. CME stock fell 11% in the first hour. By noon, it had recovered to down 6%. The pattern suggesting large institutional buying to stabilize the price. Someone with deep pockets wanted to prevent panic. The stabilization effort worked for the stock. It didn't address what's happening inside COMEX vaults. I've spoken with 3 separate sources at COMEX-approved depositories in the past 48 hours. All requested anonymity. All described the same phenomenon. Withdrawal requests have increased approximately 1,400% since the DOJ filing became public. 1,400% in 2 days. The depositories are processing requests in the order received. Current wait time for physical withdrawal of gold, 11 weeks. Silver, 14 weeks. Platinum, 16 weeks. Assuming inventory exists, which after the fracture is uncertain. If you submit a withdrawal request today, you're in a queue behind everyone who submitted yesterday. And the queue is growing exponentially while processing capacity remains fixed. This is what a bank run looks like in the precious metals market. It's happening now. It's accelerating. And the DOJ investigation just provided legal cover for the government to freeze the entire system pending investigation, if withdrawals threaten systemic stability. The investigation's scope reveals its actual purpose. Paragraph 7 of the subpoena demands records related to coordination between exchange members regarding position limits, margin requirements, and delivery protocols. Translation. The DOJ is investigating whether COMEX member banks colluded to manipulate precious metals prices. This isn't new. JP Morgan paid $920 million in 2020 to settle spoofing charges in precious metals markets. Traders went to prison. The manipulation was proven, documented, and punished. What's different about this investigation is the remedy being contemplated. Paragraph 22 of the subpoena references potential temporary administration of exchange operations to ensure market integrity during the investigation period. Temporary administration. That's government language for takeover. The DOJ is establishing grounds to assume operational control of COMEX, including its vaults, its inventory, and its records of who owns what. At 3:30 p.m. Eastern on January 23rd, Senator Elizabeth Warren issued a statement supporting the investigation and calling for emergency measures to protect retail investors from further manipulation. The statement specifically mentioned potential trading halts and inventory verification protocols that would require suspending normal operations. When a senior senator is calling for trading halts before an investigation has produced findings, the political groundwork for suspension is already being laid. This is where the lie becomes unsustainable. The COMEX has operated for 93 years on a simple premise. The metal in the vaults belongs to the people who deposited it. Custody is clear. Ownership is documented. Withdrawal is a matter of paperwork and logistics. The DOJ investigation threatens that premise. If custodial records are evidence, can the metal be withdrawn while the investigation is pending? If position data is under review, can contracts be settled normally? If the exchange itself is under temporary administration, Who decides what gets delivered and what doesn't? The legal theory being constructed is simple. COMEX is a crime scene. Evidence cannot be removed from a crime scene. The metal is evidence. Therefore, the metal cannot be removed. This theory hasn't been articulated publicly. It doesn't need to be. The subpoena's language creates the framework. The withdrawal delays create the practical barrier. By the time the theory becomes official policy, the metal will already be frozen. At 11:15 p.m. Eastern on January 23rd, COMEX issued a notice to clearing members announcing enhanced verification procedures for all physical withdrawal requests effective immediately. The notice cited regulatory compliance requirements, without specifying which regulations. The new procedures require proof of original deposit documentation, problematic for metal acquired through contract settlement rather than physical deposit. Third-party verification of identity and beneficial ownership, adding weeks to processing time. Source of funds documentation for any metal deposited after January 1, 2024, treating recent depositors as potentially suspect. Certification that withdrawn metal will not be exported, limiting what you can do with metal you theoretically own. These aren't security measures, they're friction mechanisms designed to slow withdrawals to a pace the system can survive without revealing it's insolvent. When institutions implement these kinds of barriers, they're not protecting customers, they're protecting themselves. The COMEX inventory is approximately 19 million ounces of gold and 280 million ounces of silver. Against that inventory sit paper claims that exceed physical holdings by multiples that the DOJ is now investigating. If everyone with a claim demanded delivery simultaneously, the system would fail. The system knows this. The new procedures ensure that everyone cannot demand delivery simultaneously, not by fixing the underlying mismatch, but by making withdrawal so difficult that most people give up. Less than 30 days remain before the DOJ's requested response deadline. COMEX must produce the demanded documents by February 20th, 2026. The scope of documents requested, 6 years of trading data, every position report, every delivery record, will require massive resources to compile. During that 30-day period, the legal status of COMEX inventory is ambiguous. Is it customer property or potential evidence? Can it be withdrawn freely or only with DOJ approval? Does normal commercial law apply, or does the criminal investigation take precedence? No one knows. The DOJ hasn't clarified. COMEX hasn't clarified. The ambiguity itself is the weapon, creating a gray zone where any action can be challenged, reversed, or prohibited after the fact. The people withdrawing now are betting that 30 days is enough time to extract their metal before the gray zone becomes an explicit freeze. The people waiting are betting that the system will continue functioning normally despite the investigation. History suggests which bet is safer. While the investigation proceeds, the physical market is diverging further. The platinum fracture from last week has not healed. Paper platinum, $1,247. Physical platinum in London, $2,680. The gap has widened, not narrowed. Silver is following. COMEX silver spot, $34.20. Physical silver for immediate delivery in Singapore, $47.85. The premium has grown from 23% last week to 40% today. Gold remains closest to parity, paper at $2,891, physical at $3,240. But the 12% premium is the largest gold paper physical spread since 1999, when the Bank of England's gold sales triggered a similar dislocation. The divergence tells you that sophisticated buyers don't trust paper claims. They're paying 40% premiums for silver they can hold, rather than accepting paper that might not convert to metal. The DOJ investigation validates their distrust. If the government is investigating whether COMEX delivery mechanisms are fraudulent, why would anyone trust those mechanisms to function normally? The investigation creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. By suggesting the system might be broken, it accelerates the withdrawals that will prove the system is broken. By questioning whether delivery can be trusted, it ensures that everyone demands delivery to test whether it can be trusted. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern on January 24th, the London Bullion Market Association issued a statement expressing full confidence in the integrity of global precious metals markets, and noting that LBMA operations are entirely independent of U.S. regulatory proceedings. The statement's purpose was to prevent the COMEX contagion from spreading to London. It won't work. LBMA and COMEX are connected through member banks that operate in both markets. A freeze in New York creates settlement failures that cascade to London within hours. More importantly, the LBMA statement confirms that London sees the COMEX situation as an existential threat worth publicly addressing. You don't issue statements about things that don't worry you. The mechanics of a COMEX freeze are straightforward. Step 1. DOJ declares that custodial records are evidence that cannot be disturbed. Step 2. COMEX announces temporary suspension of physical deliveries, pending clarification of legal status. Step 3. Paper trading continues, but settlement converts to mandatory cash settlement at prices determined by the exchange. Step 4. Anyone who wanted physical metal receives dollars instead, at prices that may not reflect actual physical market values. This sequence has precedent. In 1933, Executive Order 6102 prohibited private gold ownership and forced conversion to dollars at $20.67 per ounce, the official price, while physical gold was trading at $35 internationally. The government-mandated price was 41% below actual market value. The legal mechanism was different, executive order versus DOJ investigation, but the outcome was identical. Paper claims converted to cash at unfavorable rates, while physical holders retained actual metal. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The DOJ investigation provides a 21st century legal framework for achieving 20th century objectives, forcing paper claims into cash settlement while controlling the price at which settlement occurs. What the informed understand is that custody matters more than price. The price of gold, silver, platinum, these numbers fluctuate daily. What doesn't fluctuate is the question of who physically possesses the metal. Metal in your possession cannot be frozen by DOJ investigation. Metal in a COMEX vault can be. Metal in your possession doesn't require 11 weeks of processing to access. Metal in a COMEX vault does. Metal in your possession doesn't depend on the solvency of an exchange under criminal investigation. Metal in a COMEX vault does. The DOJ investigation hasn't changed the price of precious metals. It's changed the risk profile of different forms of holding. Paper claims, whether futures contracts, ETF shares, or unallocated accounts, now carry investigation risk that didn't exist 2 weeks ago. Physical possession, metal in your hand, in your safe, in a non-COMEX vault in a jurisdiction outside U.S. legal reach, doesn't carry that risk. The premium for physical over paper isn't an anomaly. It's the market pricing the difference between certain ownership and contingent claims. That premium will grow as the investigation proceeds. The withdrawal window is closing. Not because COMEX will announce a deadline, they won't, because announcing would trigger panic. The window is closing because processing times are extending. 11 weeks for gold today will be 14 weeks next week if withdrawal requests continue accelerating. Verification requirements are tightening. The new procedures add friction that compounds with each passing day. Legal ambiguity is increasing. As the DOJ investigation proceeds, the status of customer metal becomes less certain, not more. Inventory is depleting. Every successful withdrawal reduces the metal available for remaining claims. The last person in line may find nothing left. At 5:45 p.m. Eastern, on January 24th, a source at Brinks, a major COMEX-approved depository, confirmed that management had scheduled weekend meetings to discuss contingency protocols for extended operation disruption. The source couldn't, or wouldn't, elaborate on what extended operation disruption meant. But you don't schedule weekend emergency meetings for routine regulatory inquiries. You schedule them when you're preparing for scenarios that require immediate response. The subpoena is public record. Case number 2026-CR-00847. You can read it yourself on Pacer. The withdrawal delays are verifiable. Call any COMEX-approved depository and request timeline estimates. The paper physical divergence is visible. Compare COMEX spot prices to dealer prices for immediate delivery. The DOJ investigation hasn't ended COMEX price discovery yet, but it's created the legal and operational framework for ending it. The seizure authority in paragraph 14, the temporary administration language in paragraph 22, the evidence preservation requirements that apply to custodial records. All of it points toward a system that could be frozen on 48 hours' notice. The people who understand this are withdrawing now, not because they're certain the freeze will happen, because they're certain that if it does happen, being on the wrong side of it is catastrophic. Paper claims become worthless when the system backing them is under criminal investigation and potential government takeover. Physical metal remains physical metal regardless of what happens to COMEX. The 11-week withdrawal timeline means decisions made today might not result in metal in hand until April. Decisions delayed by a week push that timeline to May. Decisions delayed until the investigation escalates might not result in metal in hand at all. This is what an exit window looks like. Not an announcement that the door is closing, just a gradually narrowing gap between the ability to act and the consequences of waiting. The DOJ investigation is case number 2026-CR-00847. The subpoena authorizes seizure of inventory records and physical evidence. The withdrawal queue is growing by 1,400%, and processing times are extending daily. The paper-physical spread is 40% in silver and widening. The informed are withdrawing, the uninformed are holding paper. Which category you fall into is a choice you make in the next 72 hours. After that, the choice may be made for you.